Lehumo Capital. Viv, thank you very much for joining us. Now, straight to it, is this what the economy expected?
Yes, thank you for having me. It is actually not the best we could expect given the constraints he was facing. If you look at the situation in the economy, the fact of the matter is that he had to downgrade his expectations for the year, just under 1% growth rate to about 0.5% growth rate for the year. That has serious impact on the revenue he can basically collect, and he's basically had to respond in two ways. One is lowering the expenditure ceiling, and the other is increasing taxation. Of course, in common economic terms, that's called austerity policies, and generally is basically something you do to slow down the economy. But given our low economic growth rate at the moment, there's only so much of that he can do.
Now, Viv, are these figures likely to spur the economic growth that the country needs?
Very unlikely. There's nothing stimulative about what he's been talking about, other than the generic stuff about public-private partnerships, other than the idea of us all pulling together. There's nothing concrete that's actually going to make the economy grow faster based on what he's talked about thus far. That would require more regulatory loosening in the economy, allowing some of the red tape that small businesses especially encounter to be removed, maybe even loosening things like the labor market regulations, which are very difficult to do in the current environment. In terms of actually boosting growth in the country, there's very little here that's actually going to achieve that.
Let's now delve into this talk of possible tax hikes. Is the economy even prepared to absorb any form of increased taxes?
Yes, the problem here is that there's two main routes you can go by to actually increase taxation. One is the politically expedient but maybe the economically damaging route. We're talking about increasing the taxation on high net worth individuals, high income earners, and increasing taxation on companies. Unfortunately, at the moment, our companies are being taxed pretty much at the upper end of the international terms of what you'd expect a company to spend. Individuals are taxed beyond the average as well. And in South Africa, due to historical imbalances, you find that a large amount of the actual taxation raised in the country comes from a surprisingly small number of individuals. Approximately 1% of the total population pays over 40% of the taxation in the country, when it comes to personal income tax, for instance. And this is a population that, if you do overtax and perhaps even maybe call to basically reduce production or move towards a jurisdiction, could have a negative impact on the economy and the amount of taxes being raised. The other taxation method is something that's politically less expedient, but may be easier economically to handle. That's an increase in VAT. Problem with increasing VAT is it's very regressive and will hurt the poor more than it actually harms the rich.
Now, something that the minister has said before, which he committed to once again, is a prudent, sustainable fiscal policy aimed at closing the budget deficit. Can this be achieved at this point in time?
Look, a budget deficit is not a problem if growth rates support it. So, for instance, imagine if you're a young individual and you're going to be earning more next year than you do this year. You don't have to spend within your budget. You can spend a little bit more, knowing that next year you'll have more money coming in, more revenue coming in. If our growth rate was 4 or 5%, the budget deficit would not be a problem. However, with the growth rate, the level we are at right now, our budget deficit is probably too high to be sustainable given our low growth rate. So the idea is more a case of what is the comparable economic growth rate versus the budget deficit. So the one way and the best way I think to do it would be to increase economic growth. If we can't do that, unfortunately, we will have to try and cut down on our spending and increase our taxation, which, as I mentioned earlier, is actually called austerity policy, which would actually be negative for growth and therefore harmful for the South Africans out there.
Let's look at the outlook by ratings agencies. Is this midterm budget in any way likely to positively influence it?
Other than the fact that Viv Govender actually managed to hit the end of October, which at the start of his term basically said would be the indicator whether or not he has political support or not. I don't think there's too much here to change views. The real indications, the real problems with some of the things that agencies are saying have to do with his stability, his ability to stay in his position, or if he is removed, for policies to stay pretty strong in favor of fiscal conservatism, which he has maintained. But that, again, remember, these agencies haven't downgraded us to non-investment grade just yet. They need to see something more than that. We need to see growth increase in the country. We need to see our economic, trajectory turn around a little bit, and that I think is actually going to be more positive for our ratings going forward. But if you have to look at the market today, you saw, for instance, that the currency weakened slightly during the speech. Credit default swap, prices have not really reflected a huge increase in confidence in the economy. So I don't think there's too much happening in that particular speech that is going to increase our chances of remaining investment grade.
Now, I guess a good way to wrap up would be to look at what the minister said in terms of having decisive action that is needed to restore confidence, as well as inspiring the private sector investment to boost economic growth. How can that happen?
Well, there's a number of policy uncertainties that need to be taken care of. Some of the regulations that have to be formalized. For instance, the once empowered, always empowered calculations need to be done, and the regulation needs to be basically brought into place. There has to be some kind of showing from government that growth is actually a priority and that we need to focus on that. There is a great deal of money out there. Some estimates are putting it in excess of $500 billion rands that are available in balance sheets around the country, in corporate balance sheets that could be put to work in the economy. But right now it's been held up, and that's not even talking about the amount of money that's available for international investors basically bringing to the country. So what we need is a bit of policy certainty, some more focus on growth and growth-friendly policies from government. But even if all those things were done tomorrow, the way investment works, investment is very cautious, and it would not take, it would rather take quite some time. We're not talking about 1 or 2 months for the effect to be felt in the real economy. We could talk about a period of years before we find the full effects coming into the real economy.
Viv, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on SABC News. That was Viv Govender, a market analyst at Lehumo Capital, giving us some analysis on the midterm budget.